Please be upstanding for His Worship the Mayor of the London Borough of Hounslow, accompanied by the Deputy Mayor and the Chief Executive.
I would like to welcome members from both ends, officers, public present here, and those watching at home. May I ask the telephone to be put on silent mode? May I remind members that they cannot tweet, but the public can. Can I ask the member if they have the main agenda and the supplementary agenda? Everyone has it? Thank you. May I remind all members that all debates should be done through the mayor and without interruptions. As this is the first meeting of the council since the AGM, I think it is a good time to remind us all that we are formally committed to civility in public life. I would like us all to set a good example to others. So whilst it is fine for us to disagree politically, we must always do so in a respectful manner. I know I can rely on members to remember this when contributing today. And may I also remind you that points of order can only be about breaches of the Constitution or law. Finally, please do not turn on your microphones until I have asked you to speak. The microphones are connected to the video cameras and used for webcast. And so if you press them too soon, they move from the person who is actually speaking. Thank you. We will now move on to the first item of the agenda. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence and declaration of interests. I've got, yes, Mr. Stroud, yeah?
I've got two apologies, Councillor Barth and Councillor Shivraz Garawal.
Okay. Can you note that? Any more?
Councillor Lambert for lateness.
Apology from Danny's side.
And Councillor Vikram Garawal for lateness as well.
Yes.
Councillor Tony Lukey.
Councillor Tony Lukey.
Wasn't sure where I was going. Councillor Giles and Councillor Mashiso for lateness.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Amrit Maan and Councillor Aqsa Ahmed.
All right, okay. Because I think I had received those Councillor Aqsa Ahmed, Councillor Amy Croft, Councillor Tony Lukey, Councillor Amrit Maan, Councillor Danish Saeed, Councillor Balraj Sroy, and I've got apologies for lateness from Tom Bruce. Is there any more?
Although Tom Bruce has made it on time.
Oh. Okay. See, that's very good, isn't it? You know. Okay. That's a miracle today, yeah? Good.
Magic.
Oh, that's very good. Okay. Any other apologies? None? Okay. Thank you. May I ask members if they have any declaration of interest? Anyone? No? We now come to announcements. I believe we have announcements from the cabinet. Is there any? Okay. Councillor Tom Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hounslow Council's planning and buildings team have engaged in a new planning apprenticeship partnership programme with the London South Bank University to help train and develop a new cohort of planning officers for the council. Successful candidates would work with the planning team while studying a degree programme at London South Bank to secure their professional qualifications. The programme has opened doors to aspiring officers who may otherwise have found barriers to starting their career in planning, and has attracted significant level of interest when the positions were advertised this spring. I'm absolutely delighted to announce that positions have been offered to 4 excellent candidates, including residents of the London Borough of Hounslow, and even more delighted to say that this includes a resident of the borough who has experience in the care system as well. So it's a fantastic thing for this borough, and I am really grateful to the Buildings and Planning's team and Vincent, the Director of Planning, who was a big drive in getting this forward. They're currently going through the process of onboarding and registering with the university, and the team, including Vincent, look forward to rolling out similar schemes in the future. So well done to them.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Is there any? Councillor Dunn, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to announce that the latest data we have available confirms that Hounslow Council, through its efforts to decarbonise our corporate and education buildings, is now generating 19% of our own energy from solar panels and other renewable sources. This is against the target set by the administration at the last election of 25% energy generation by 2026. We've done this by decarbonising a total of 62 corporate and school buildings to date. And we have a further 5 schools in the pipeline, which are being worked on in the next phase of the public sector decarbonisation fund programme, for which we have secured £2.1 million. And we've also commissioned a feasibility study for the installation of solar PV panels on all council building assets, which we'll report in September. Beyond the council's own buildings, Hounslow is also progressing to develop our own energy plan for the borough, and the Cabinet have agreed to fund this to look in greater depth at energy generation opportunities across the borough. The Borough of Hounslow is also leading on the development of an energy master plan for the whole area of West London. This is looking at energy resilience and grid capacity in West London, and will inform future developments of locally generated energy, district energy, and development of the grid. Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Dunn. I know that you had an accident and you made effort to come here. Wish you get well soon,
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to very much thank the council staff for helping set up this evening to accommodate me.
You're welcome. Thank you. We conclude the announcement this evening with the sad news of the death of former Chief Executive of the Council, the late Lord Bob Kerslake, who died recently at the age of 68. Born in Bath, he attended the Blue School in Wales and graduated with a first-class degree in mathematics from the University of Warwick. After qualifying as an accountant, Bob held a number of posts with London councils, including being a successful and well-regarded chief executive in Hounslow in 1990s. Before leaving us to take up the post of chief executive at Sheffield City Council in 1997. His many skills were later recognized by Whitehall, and he worked there for some years, eventually ending up in prestigious role of head of the civil service between 2011 and 2014. After retirement, he was appointed Baron Kerslake and took a seat in the House of Lords. It was serving there that saw him appointed as chair of the independent investigation of the Manchester Arena bombing tragedy. The result of the investigations were published in a report commonly referred to as a Kerslake report in March 2018. Bob Kerslake was dedicated public servant, working at both local and national level, and is well remembered and fondly recalled by a number of members in the chamber today and officers alike, and his recent death was a great sadness to us all. Therefore, on behalf of all members, I would like to extend our thoughts and condolences to the late Lord Kerslake's family and friends. We will now stand up for 1 minute silence. Please be seated. We will now move on to the next item of the agenda, agenda item 3. So minutes. We now come to the minutes of the meeting of the council held on 23rd of February and 28th of May 2003. May I ask member if they have any corrections that they wish to propose? This is on page 10 to 65. Is there any? No? Now, are there any matter arising from the minutes? May I remind you that this is just for clarification, not to reopen any debate. Is there any? No? Thank you. May I now ask members to agree the minutes? Thank you. Agenda item 4, petitions. May I ask members if they have any new petitions to present? None? Thank you. We now move to the second part of the process. We have no petition for consideration at the council meeting itself this evening. And now may I ask members to note the petition listed in the report. Thank you. Agenda item 5. We now come to the agenda item 5. Members can find the covering reference report from Cabinet in the supplementary agenda and the main report at pages 69 to 87 of their agenda. Can I ask Councillor Tom Bruce to propose the report?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This evening, I am asking if Council can approve the withdrawal of parts 2, 3 and 4 of our local plan review and looking towards resubmission for that at some point in the future, in the next year to 2 years. There's a long and drawn out and complex process is the local plan. Those members who were here in 2015 will remember we agreed the local plan at that time. We still have that 2015 local plan in place. Part of that process, the inspectors at the time asked us to carry out reviews on 2 particular areas. This is still where we're at with it. The Great West Corridor and the west of the Borough review. A huge amount of work has been undertaken since then. Clearly, we've had COVID and other interruptions as well since then, which has meant this has been slightly, this has been even further drawn out than is usual in this process. Members will remember, hopefully remember last year, I brought parts 2, 3 and 4 in front of you asking for your approval to go into the second part of the consultation, which you kindly agreed to. Officers carried out that action, but in discussion with the inspectors, decided and agreed, the inspectors said that actually what we need to do now is to have a look again at the whole local plan in its entirety. what officers have come to the conclusion with counsel and legal advice is that the best course of action in order to ensure we keep the work that we've done already, a huge amount of work that's been put into this process, to ensure we have a local plan that's relevant and up to date and in place as soon as possible. We're asking council this evening, I'm asking for you to agree to withdraw those parts 2, 3 and 4, put that together with the first part of the local plan, reconsult on the whole lot of it and move that forward to submit formally at some point in the future. It means we will enable this authority to be moving forward with employment targets and housing targets, but it also means that we are able to ensure that the housing and employment properties that come forward and anything that fits under planning, we can have the best control of possible. So there are a number of different documents I appreciate here. There was the previous council report. There is the cabinet report earlier in this year. There was a cabinet report just earlier this month. And then there's the covering one today. But essentially, I've tried to sum up what all of them say and the recommendations are there. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the report.
Thank you. May I now invite Councillor Rajawat to second the report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I second it and formally reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. May I invite members to comment on and discuss the report and debate? Councillor Todd?
Councillor John Todd. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 70 of the report, it says the inspectors raised procedural and potential soundness issues with the progressing the report and wrote to us in December. We're really concerned about the delay here and the sanitisation of the letters from the inspectors. The report elsewhere mentions some but not all of the reasons, but it begs the question, how can we be so late and taken so long? Some of the new matters raised clearly by inference must be radically different. And by way of example, on page 77, paragraph 5.1, Hounslow faces barriers to housing, significant issues. High levels of retail and commercial vacancies in some of the borough's town centres, and poor public realm and environment. These are key issues which should have been addressed, and we should be taking action to implement a plan to reduce, as Councillor Bruce mentioned, employment and housing targets. Bringing this document here is not a rubber stamp. The council is not a rubber stamp. And we have got to make sure that the council is accountable and is taking the best possible steps to address this significant delay. So I'd invite Councillor Bruce in his summing up to make more, certainly give more clarification. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Todd, is there any other comments? Yes, Councillor McGregor. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to turn to page 80. Thank you so much. I would very much like to turn to page 80 of the report because we have key milestones. One of the key things about milestones is that when they appear, we should be able to recognize them, but also we should be able to forecast in advance when they should occur. We have April 2023 onwards for the next lot of work. We have autumn 2023 having the focus consultation. And then we use words like late 2023, early 2024, early 2024, spring 2024. So it goes on. There's nothing exact about this. We need to coordinate this with cabinet meetings so that the lead member can report back at every cabinet meeting about the progress on the plan. I'm sure that that is in his mind anyway. The second point about it is, by not setting actual dates according to the timetable of the council's meetings, we consistently miss target dates where debate can be heard and questions asked. If we don't set actual dates, it gives people a chance to slide away, because spring 2024 to one officer might mean a completely different date to another officer. So I would ask Councillor Bruce to pledge that he will do his best to rework the milestone in the indicative timescale, to come back with an analysis that helps us understand what's going on and come back to the council and come back to the cabinet on a regular basis with updates so that we don't have a vast shuffle of stuff where volume 1 is finally presented and adapted and volumes 2, 3 and 4 are in place. So could I urge Councillor Bruce to look at that and perhaps be kind enough, not this evening, but at some time in the next few weeks, perhaps I'll give him a date. Perhaps by the 14th of August, he'll be in a position where he can actually let me know where things stand with regard to this administrative timetable. If we want success, we have to be exact. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. McGregor, can I, any further comments? No? In that case, can I ask Councillor Bruce to respond?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll start with Councillor McGregor first. He makes a fair point. I absolutely agree that when we're talking about timetables, it is very important to be as exact as possible. I think that's the point you're making. The difficulty here is a lot of this is at the behest of the inspectors. So there is things in this that we need to take control of, and perhaps I can have a look at that and see how we can create some better milestones there. But some of this has a stretch time because of external factors, and there's not a lot we can do about that. I see thumbs up. So we're trying to be as exact as possible. I appreciate what you're saying, but giving the flexibility where we can demonstrate to people, look, winter 2025 is where we expect to have all of these things in place and adopted. That's really the point there. I think it leads into Councillor Todd's point. Absolutely, there have been delays in this. I would say we're not alone in that. Many, many councils are dealing with this. Number one, there are long waits with the inspectors. There's long periods of time in between the examination periods and hearings. COVID didn't help. That put a lot of stop on this as well. But there has been delays on our side as well, and getting things in the right place, it has been important. That's where I believe, and where this document sets out we are now. I think this is a much, much better place to be. Having a holistic local plan that we can say in winter 2025, this is our local plan 2025. And we no longer have to refer back to local plan 2015 on this bit, 2018 on this bit, 2022 update on this, all of that kind of stuff. This will be the updated local plan, and we can go through from there. It's important as well to note that even throughout the process, when things are submitted before final adoption, they still have wait in planning terms. You don't have to wait until 2025 to say, now this is in place. Those documents have wait up until that period as well. So both points absolutely fair, and I acknowledge that, and I hope I've been able to give both some assurance about where we're headed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. Is there any other comments? Okay, thank you. Can I, do you want to, Councillor Rajawat, do you want to say anything? No? Thank you. Okay. Yeah. No. Can I ask members to vote on the recommendations? There are two in total, one for approval and one for noting. Thank you. Yeah, that's, yeah. Thank you, Councillor Rajawat and Councillor Bruce, and the contribution from the opposition. Thank you. Now we are moving to item 6. When I come to agenda item 6, the Treasury Management Annual Report, again, members will find the reference report in their supplementary agenda and the main report in their main agenda at pages 88 to 102. Can I invite Councillor Shantanu Rajawat to propose the report?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Following discussion at Cabinet, I'm pleased to refer back to Council this very important document. As an administration, we have big ambitions for the future of our borough, a real sense of transformation, sense of moment in time that will be achieved by the way we fund it. And this Treasury Management report details our Treasury Management activity, which is our activity in terms of the way we invest public money, but also our cash flow as well. And it's heavily regulated by CITFA as a public body, but also within our own policies. Council will recall that at the budget, we set our strategy for Treasury Management for the year ahead. And I can report to Council, based on the contents of this report, that we sit well within the code, but also within our own policies. And that is a good news story, staying within our means and investing wisely for the future to be able to deliver our ambitions going forward. I wasn't going to say more than that, Mr. Mayor, except to formally move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Rajawat. May I ask Councillor Dunn to second the report?
I second the report and reserve my right to speak.
Okay. May I now invite members to comment on, discuss the report and debate? Councillor Todd? Yes.
Yeah, thanks very much. A significant report. Initial reading was shocked at the huge increase in borrowing. But there are two related matters I'd like to draw to the attention of the leader. I know you know about it already. It is concerning at the financial year end when there's a continuing carryover of capital funding, significant funding, £38 million. Now, this is the second or third year you've done that. Explanations are given on slowness of work, but trying to put that sum in context of your accounts is quite difficult. So I do hope that money hasn't been borrowed and not used. I say no more than that. And can I make another very minor point? On page 95, the leader, paragraph 524, it says, on lending to Lambton Investments, resulted in the contribution of reserves of £3.12 million. Put in simple terms, we charge, as I understand it, roughly the interest rate that we borrow the money from. Now, if you look at the recent Cabinet report on Lambton's performance, they do say interest rate increases affected Lambton Home's ability to purchase properties. It's a minor point, but I think you may want to consider that, certainly in the interim, as I'm not quite sure whether Lambton realises the levy, because they quote a separate reference. I'll say no more than that. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other comments? Councillor Lambert?
Just to say, with some knowledge of Lambton Homes, that they have over the years created over 500 homes that have been bought using loans. That Lambton Homes business is stable and actually profitable, and we've got good chance over the years, not next week probably, to get capital increase in those homes, and nearly all of those 500 odd homes are providing homes for people who used to be in temporary accommodation, and they're now in very good quality indirectly council owned homes, and that's a real win.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Is there any? McGregor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the key things we see here is the reduction in funding coming in from temporary investments. We have a real problem on our hands. The leader a few moments ago talked about the fact this is an ambitious plan. Well, given the amount of time the Labour Party has been in charge of Hounslow, and given the fact that we're still in the bottom quartile of social deprivation for most of that time, ambition is fine. Spending capital, which is not getting a yield, is not fine. The important thing about this is that our capacity to cover some of our total debt has been gradually diminished over the last 4 years. Now, we could make a case for COVID, we could make a case for lack of central government funding, we could make a case of not getting the grants. I understand all that. But nonetheless, we've just had mention of Lambton Group. They've created 500 homes since they were founded. Memory serves me, I think they had plans to build thousands, not hundreds, when they started. And they're nowhere near that target. Nowhere near. And yet, we are bumping money into them left, right, and center. Now, it doesn't take much to consider what happened in Croydon, where a financial disaster was created by a lack of managerial and political control, and where money was pumped into a house building program that didn't work at all. The council taxpayers of Croydon will be paying for that for a generation and a half. That's not a clever position to be in. Now, I believe we have strong financial control within our borough, but I'm not sure if that strong financial control is exhibited by some of our executive agencies, because the numbers, to me, don't really add up when you actually look at them in totality. On page 93, we have one of the most frightening graphs you can imagine. We're now looking at an upward trend in long-term interest rates. We know why. The energy crisis, the failure of some key banks on the world scale, world stage. We also know that the Bank of England missed several tricks. Of course, the Bank of England was made independent by a Labour Chancellor. At the time, people thought that was quite a good idea. But the outcome of this has not been a good idea, because the Bank of England's independence is not reflected in the approach by government. That's very dangerous. When you have two economic elements in our economy, the government doing one thing and the Bank of England not necessarily criticizing that, but not falling to line either. It's a difficult situation to be in. And the other thing is the short-term volatility in those rates. This is critical for the market. Market's made up of two elements. There's the capital market for bonds and borrowing for more than 1 year, and there's the short-term market. The short-term market is generally volatile, but we've now seen various scrapes. Immediately after the oil price and gas price rise, the money market went bananas. And it's only come back into some sort of sensibility recently. This makes this long-term treasury outturn very vulnerable. However, let me say, I'm pleased about the presentations, because at least it means that we've got something to look at going forward. And I'm pleased that our finance team have shown themselves to be as rigorous as ever. And I have nothing further to say, except to say we'll look at this with interest over the forthcoming period. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. And Councillor Dunn.
Thank you. There's always a contradiction in what I hear from the opposition when they talk about these reports. You know, they praise our finance team for its rigor and everything, and at the same time that they're just desperate for us to fail, and they keep pointing out that we're about to fail, and we never do. And you know, some of you have been doing it all the time that I've been on the council. You're not bored of it by now. We do have sound financial management in this borough, and we have proved that over a very difficult term of office. We have had COVID, we've had austerity, we've had lack of government funding, we've had the trust government, which you failed to mention, Councillor McGregor. All those things, and yet we are prevailing, and we will prevail, because that is what we do in Hounslow. And yes, not every council has managed, and some have fallen over. And you mentioned Croydon, but because it was a Labour council, but you failed to mention Thurrock, you failed to mention Northamptonshire. Croydon is not the only example, but the good news for Hounslow is that we are not in that position, and nor will we be in that position.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Thank you. Is there any more? No? Okay. Can I ask sum up?
Mr. Mayor, let's go to the vote. Councillor Dunn said it better than I would have done.
All right. Okay. All right. sorry. Sorry. May I ask member to note the reports? No vote needed here. So it's noted. Thank you. Thank you, councillors, for your contribution. Now we move on to the next item, agenda 7. Now we come to the agenda item 7, which is the annual scrutiny report for 22-23. I would therefore like to invite the chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Sayar Raza, to speak to the report. Councillor Sayar Raza.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to present the Scrutiny Annual Report of 2022-23. As you all know, Scrutiny provides a platform for members to look at issues that matter to residents, learn from experts, and through considered discussion, arrive at recommendations for how the council can best serve local people. I will draw your attention to page 122 of the agenda pack to see the actions and impact of Overview and Scrutiny Committee over the past year. The OSC considers such diverse matters: our pandemic response, EDI strategy development, the current state of corporate parenting, cycling parking provision, amongst other subjects. Scrutiny is committed to work across council and beyond. Last municipal year, OSC engaged with partners such as Hounslow and Richmond Community Healthcare Trust, the West London Trust, and housing associations in the borough. In addition to the 6 OSC meetings, each of the 3 subcommittee panels met 4 times over the past year in order to do intense work on particular subjects of their deep dive. The 3 scrutiny panels conducted a deep dive into the following areas. The Children and Young People panel considered the immigration status support provided to looked after children, with particular focus on unaccompanied asylum-seeking children in the borough. The Health and Adult Care panel focused on dementia care in the community. And the Housing Environment panel focused on housing repairs and customer satisfaction. The recommendations from all 3 panels were submitted to the relevant lead members for response. I would like to thank Vice Chair Councillor Foote and panel chairs Councillor Perisotto, Councillor Sharma, and yourself, Mr. Mayor, as the Chair of Housing and Environment, and all scrutiny panel members. I would also like to thank all the officers and lead members who have attended meetings, presented evidence, and supported us in the last municipal year. There will be an element of continuity in scrutiny from 2022-23 to 2023-24, and I look forward to building on the work of the previous year and continuing a productive and respectful relationship in this municipal year of the Overview and Scrutiny and the Executive. I move this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raza. May I invite Councillor John Stroutrop to second the report?
Thank you very much, Mr. I second this report and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. May I invite members to comment on and discuss the report and debate? Councillor Emsley.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your hard work in chairing the housing panel. As a member of that panel, I saw firsthand the fantastic job you did in collecting the panel's thoughts. He's talking as we're saying this. It's very distracting, and helping to produce the report that we're now debating. Thanks also to fellow panel members, and in particular Councillor Bowering, who was the vice chair of that panel, and during our deep dive into Koalo and council property maintenance. I really welcome this report, and in particular the 5 recommendations of the housing panel. And I wanted to just briefly talk about what I think is the most critical recommendation that we made, which is an urgent review into empty council homes in the borough. The latest data shows that there are 449 empty properties in the London Borough of Hounslow, and of those, 199 have been empty for over a year. That's a rate of empty properties that's over double the national average. This borough is clearly doing something wrong, and we have to figure out what it is. To address the problems, the panel has quite rightly recommended that the council carries out an urgent review into what exactly it is that we're doing wrong, so that we can start working out what the council needs to do differently. These are cross-party recommendations for an issue that should transcend party politics. Not only is leaving so many properties empty financially inefficient, it's also morally unacceptable to leave hundreds of properties empty while 6,000 people wait for a council home in Hounslow. And these aren't just single bedroom properties either, Mr. Mayor. These are 3-bedroom and 4-bedroom homes that have been lying empty for over a year that should be used to house families that are struggling. This council needs to do better. So I'm incredibly proud of the work that the Housing Scrutiny Panel has done over the past year, and I hope that the administration now understands the scale of the problem with empty properties in the borough, accepts our recommendations in full, and puts in place a clear plan to urgently fix this scandal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsley. Can I ask Councillor Gill? Councillor Gill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Marina Sharma for the chair for the deep dive report on dementia care in the community. As a member of the group, we got on well. The deep dive report investigated the referral system, the support available for sufferers and families, and good practice examples plus referral paths. I refer to the support available to sufferers. From my own personal experience with my partner, the support for sufferers has been absolutely superb, excellent beyond words. From day one, dealing with first contact and the staff at LBH have been excellent. The staff in all the different dementia sectors of LBH have gone beyond their duty to help me and my partner. The support was tremendous. I have no complaints, just praises for all those working in LBH, because I know I've heard from other boroughs, the support is not as good as what LBH provides. I can say it's the service of par excellence from LBH. One member of staff from LBH offered to home sit on the days I would be at the borough council meetings, but fortunately, my good neighbor offered to do that, so the service was not required, but it was really great. So I suppose because of the pressure of my work and living under such conditions for the last 5 years, which I can only describe as hell, because you never know what you will find when you get home from work. The place smashed, or the person gone missing, lost their way, left the doors open, and the dog missing. And then, of course, it's time to call the police, and who have been excellent to find the missing person. I would not wish this on anyone. Luckily, as I said, my neighbor was there and it was helpful. LBH, you are wonderful, wonderfully excellent for the care and support for the sufferers of this disease. Can I call on all my fellow councillors to stand and give a standing ovation and a clap for the support from LBH staff? From my own experience, there's only one room for improvement, and that is the area for the support for the carers for people like me, which I think Councillor Chowdhury is aware of. We have discussed it. Personally, I know I'm a strong person, but my friends tell me because they would never been able to cope with the pressures I've been through. And I explained this to the panel, but unfortunately to date, no one has come to ask me how I'm getting on or any support has been provided. Carers also do need support when they have lived with their partner for 40 over years and to see them deteriorating day by day. This has a terrible effect on my own mental health and well-being. And this is also the time you find out who your true friends are. I would take this opportunity to thank a few of my fellow Conservative councillors who have been very helpful, with one who has gone out of the way to help me at the worst of my times, in tears, totally lost, but thankful. Thank you for being there and listening to me. To sum up, Thank you, LBH, for the excellent work the staff do. Be proud of for doing such an excellent job. Thank you, LBH.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. And can I ask Councillor Bidoff to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm afraid this is a change of mood. I herald what Ranjit says and thank him very much for all that he's done, which this is going to help others as well, obviously. This annual report pretends that the main Overview and Scrutiny Committee fulfilled its role as it should. It also misses out crucial facts about the pre-cabinet scrutiny meeting that looked at proposed changes for roads in Grove Park, Chiswick, which did so much to damage the reputation of what should be a highly respected committee. That meeting was not only a shambles of procedure, with the chairman not knowing the process despite a guidance note being sent to members, but is also a fact that the chairman misled the committee by saying he had had hundreds of emails in support of the proposals. We found out later through a resident's freedom of information request that he had received 75 emails, not hundreds, 74 of which I had also received, and only one of which supported the proposals. That wasn't all, though. The main committee was notable for asking shallow questions fixed before each meeting, spontaneous questions being discouraged, whether by not allowing time for them or avoiding calling councillors who wanted to ask them. Misleading the scrutiny committee should be enough to bar anyone from being a member, and they should certainly not be chairman again. Yet that is what has happened. The pre-cabinet scrutiny meeting guidance note reminded calling committee members, and it applies to all scrutiny members, that they should be offering challenge and critical support to the executive's policy development function. Seeking to endorse policies we are supposed to challenge is not good for scrutiny, nor is being party political. Challenging is not the same as opposing, yet the chairman seemed to think it was. Up till last year, I had enjoyed being a member of a committee that brought both sides together with a common purpose, improving services. Several of us, and there's some in this room, have said the same thing when we were discussing our part on this committee. Other scrutiny committee members and panel chairmen have understood that, including you, Mr. Mayor. That role should be to shine a light on policies or processes that we know from comments made to us are not serving our residents or business ratepayers well. A good scrutiny committee chairman encourages a deep investigation, one that gets as close to the heart of an issue as possible, always looking at it from the point of view of the people we represent. Last year was marked by a reluctance to look in depth, a determination to draw a conclusion that avoids critical challenge, aiming instead to rubber stamp policies and practices. This also happened when we looked at housing associations, a huge concern raised by many councillors over many years because of the many complaints we have had from residents about their housing association homes. The recommendation from committee members was that we should ask residents and housing association leaders to meet us. What happened? We had a fireside chat with housing association leaders, yes, with pre-decided questions, accepting their soft soap comments about needing to do better about repairs without making any firm commitments, and a request for an email address for councillors to use, matching what one housing association already does. No residents were invited. It could not have been more ineffective, so much so that it is back on the agenda for this year. My expectations are not high. My confidence in the committee chairman to do better this time is extremely low. At the heart of this is a diminution of respect for this committee by this council. Support from officers has been reduced. We have lost excellent policy input and guidance. There appears to be a reluctance to prioritise scrutiny. This year I attended the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny's annual conference. It was instantly clear that other councils' scrutiny committees have a much greater level of respect and support than does ours. They take their scrutiny committee seriously. So should we. Mr. Mayor, if this report were to be put to a vote, I would vote against it. It fails to convey facts about the main committee's work, the reality only being available through links to recordings, not in the summary chart on pages 15 and 16. 10 of its pages are taken up by photos of its members, one photo to a page. This should not be about us and our egos. This waste of space seems to me to be another example of the role of the main committee last year. The main Overview and Scrutiny Committee must do better this year.
Thank you, Councillor Bidoff. Any other comments? Yeah, okay. Councillor John Stroudtrup.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start by thanking Councillor Gill for his very positive comments about the process. And I think everybody on both sides of the chamber are very sympathetic to what he said. I wish I could be as positive about all the comments we've heard from the opposition. And particularly the rather unpleasant comment made accusing the chair of urban scrutiny of misleading. This clearly was not misleading. The chair's said several times he was speaking figuratively, something we've all done 100 times. There was no aim to mislead any committee whatsoever. And I think we need to park that one and now put it back where it belongs. Mr. Mayor, urban scrutiny, it's not a political game. It's not a means for the opposition to try to smuggle their own agenda by stealth into the council. It's a critical part of council decision making. It's a process by which the cabinet is held accountable. It should work as a critical friend, not an enemy towards the council. It should seek to ensure that we are delivering the very best for our residents. It's not, as some members of the opposition would have it, a place to moan, to complain, without offering any positive contributions or even an alternative view. We on this side of the cabinet believe in a robust and constructive process which will enhance and improve all we do as a council by ensuring we ask the searching and relevant questions. And that is what we seek to do in urban scrutiny, not to chisel away, not to ask irrelevant, pointless political point-scoring questions, but to make the process better for everyone. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the chair, all the panel members, and all the committee members for the really hard and diligent work they've done this year. And I know that the cabinet members have really respected what's been done. They've valued the contribution that's been made to them, and they know by that contribution their policies have got better. Mr. Mayor, I would absolutely commend and recommend this report to council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stroudtrup. Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Dunn, please, to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to put on record my thanks to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and to its chair for the work they've done over the year, in particular the scrutiny that they've given to policies in my portfolio area, and when I requested the help of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in making a difficult decision around traffic schemes in the South Chiswick Liverpool neighbourhood, then thank you very much for the work that was done on that. The result was that they didn't agree with the recommendations that had been put forward by officers, and they made some different recommendations that I was then able to take forward to cabinet. Those recommendations were a better way forward. They were praised at the time by Councillor Thompson, and so it meant that we got a much better result, and that to me is an example of the committee working as it should.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. And now we have Councillor McGregor.
This is all a bit hollow because scrutiny has been hollowed out. 13 years ago, there were 13 full-time staff in scrutiny, led by a remarkable lady who went off to be Richmond-upon-Thames Scrutiny Committee chair, officer. And this remarkable lady managed to produce vast amounts of information covering the work that was done between 2007 and 2010. Now, since 2010, the number of full-time staff in scrutiny has dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped and continues. So we end up with a leader of the scrutiny team who has to work jolly hard. There's nothing wrong with that. But we also find that panel members are actually going out and doing the work formerly done by officers. Now, some panel members will no doubt have the skill sets required to actually do that sort of investigatory and report writing approach. But I fear that many will not have that capacity. And therefore, we're ending up with amateur night. Now, that's not to say that councillors aren't diligent or do their best. But if you have a full-time officer who's fully in touch with the brief, it makes a big difference to the outcome of the report. And that's true across the board in local administration, from education, housing, planning, finance, etc., etc., etc. So when we hear about, these plans, and I take it as read, yes, okay, there was a slip of the tongue in the matter concerning South Chiswick, and it was a pastiche. The 151 officer was not willing to take it up because she said all politicians lie. That's not what I wanted to hear. I was hoping she'd say, well, we didn't take it up because we regarded it as something less than a requirement. So these are issues where hollowing out is not mentioned at all. You've lost officers, you've lost capacity, you've lost the will to do things. And quite simply, I'm very happy to take this report as read, because it's the only report we've got. But since it's the only report we've got, I'll take it. But quite simply, I'm not sure whether the loss of all these highly skilled officers is a reflection of good progress, good process, and good management.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Can I ask Councillor Rajwat to say?
Yes.
We have noted that and we'll come back if we'll just, yeah, okay.
Extraordinary from our opposition this evening. We've heard it all from Councillor McGregor this evening. It's everyone's fault but the government's. We've hollowed out our staff, but it's not the government's fault whatsoever. Austerity was not their problem. It was our problem. We've hollowed out our staffs because we don't value scrutiny and we don't value the structures. This is incredible, Councillor McGregor, and beneath you. Absolutely beneath you. But what is most beneath you, I wasn't going to speak this evening because my colleagues were doing a fantastic job on this report, but I will not accept you paraphrasing the monitoring officer in the way that you have. And I would strongly recommend that you stand up and correct the record, because that is not what the monitoring officer said on her advice, and you know it's not. You're not looking at me at the moment, but I would strongly suggest you do correct the record on that, because that is terrible if that is what you're standing by. That is not acceptable. On the rest of the report, Councillor Bidoff, I'm sorry. It sounds a lot like I did not get my way, so this report is not acceptable. That is what you talk about. You accuse us of massaging our egos by photographs in this report, and yet it all boils down to one person's ego was not massaged in a scrutiny committee, therefore scrutiny does not do its job. I have to remind all my colleagues opposite that every single member of this cabinet, including myself, not only attends when invited, but also actively seeks to engage. Councillor Dunn's an example of that, I'm an example of that, and every single member of the cabinet is. And we respect our scrutiny colleagues, not because they're Labour Party members, but because they do a damn good job, and I will not have their work sullied by people who think that their egos haven't been massaged, so therefore the work is irrelevant. This is a good report, Councillor Raza. You are a good chair, you have my full support, and I will carry on supporting the committee, but I will not accept cheap jibes like that of this committee.
McGregor might want to come in.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rajwat. Can I ask Councillor Todd to say?
Follow that. Fine. Councillor John Strouter mentioned he wants the very best for our residents. I just want to make two brief points, factual points. I readily endorse Councillor Jack Emsley's point about the empty houses. That's indefensible. I've raised it months ago. But secondly, Councillor Shanton, at Cabinet, you presented an excellent report on the performance of Lambton. And in that report, it highlights the performance of the repairs department of Hounslow Homes. And it says, a few months ago, the number of repairs outstanding was 57. And that figure's now gone to 1,210. Now that to me is the personification of disruption and inefficiency. And that counters the very words of John Strout, the very best for our residents. In my view, that sort of data should be presented in a wider sphere to make sure that we take prompt action. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. And Councillor McGregor, you asked, can I just say something?
Well, I'm
before,
very happy to
before
withdraw.
you speak, can I say something?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very
I'm just saying, this is the Usually it's once, but means I'm allowing you to respond, because your name was there.
I'm very happy to withdraw the
Is that-
remark. That it was not heard by me, it was reported to me. And I took it in the same vein as the comment made about hundreds of emails in support.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Let's moving on. Can I ask Councillor Raza to sum up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's been brilliant that, scrutiny is an absolute critical friend to Cabinet and to this Borough Council. I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues who supported this, and thank you, Leader and Catherine, Deputy Leader as well as our Chief Whip as well. So thank you all. Again, I do thank everybody who's been on the committee panel last year, and I look forward to have a very strong committee panel and discussion this year. Thank you.
Raza? This report is just to note, so please note here. Thank you. Agenda item 8. We now come to the appointments, which is a standing item on our agenda. May I also draw members' attention to nomination which are included in the supplementary agenda. Noted. Is there any other nominations? Okay, thank you. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item 9. Okay. 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 I'll ask, just a minute. This is just to note this report is, so is that okay? Noted? Thank you. Agenda item 10. We now come to the part of the meeting where we deal with council questions. We have 3 this evening and a total of 45 minutes to deal with them. I've been advised the Councillor Aqsa Ahmed is unable to be with us this evening, and so Councillor Muhammad Umar will be asking the question in her place. Can I ask Councillor Umar to ask question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the government appears to be losing control of the economy and the cost of living crisis continues to bite, can the leader outline how the council's community hubs are offering help to our hard-pressed residents? Thank you.
Thank you, Umar. Can I ask Councillor Rajawat to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Umar, for asking the question on behalf of Councillor Ahmed. Although we've been led to believe that the government haven't lost control of the economy, I fully agree with the premise of this question. And the council have been doing quite a lot in this area. They've been helping residents with the impact of the cost of living through a comprehensive package of support, advice, information, and guidance provided in person, on the telephone, and online through a dedicated section of our website. This has included support for individuals who are struggling to pay for food, for example, with access to emergency funds via referral to food banks, to manage their energy usage and costs, working with partners such as Groundworks, Green Doctor, and to pay for other essential items such as white goods or household furniture. We've done this through our own council welfare scheme and through utilising the Household Support Fund. Financial advice and debt support has also been directly offered through the council and commissioned and grant-funded partners, including Citizens Advice and Crosslight. We've also helped individuals with debt management advice and families help with school uniform costs, free school meals, and help with travel costs, noting that the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, is also expanding the free school meal system from September as well. The Community Solutions team have also run drop-in sessions to meet residents face-to-face, providing holistic support with issues around the cost of living. We've held regular cost of living marketplace events over the last year at a variety of community and faith-based settings, with over 800 residents attending. Building upon this approach, helping residents access early help and preventative advice early on before they reach crisis point, we want to make it as easy as possible for our residents to interact with us and deliver more services closer to home. Therefore, the council is rolling out community hubs across the borough, bringing together council teams, voluntary community and social enterprise organisations, health partners and others. Each hub will have a range of services and activities on offer tailored to local needs. Our first is at Feltham, operating in a campus approach with a number of interventions and activities taking place at various venues, including the library, local housing offices, and a regular presence of council services and voluntary sector partners at the assembly halls, launching in September. In the lead up to September's launch, every Tuesday afternoon between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m, Community Solutions, Revenue and Benefits, and a small number of other council services and partners who can help people with issues that they are facing because of the cost of living, and much more will be at the assembly halls. As we move forward and learn from the early experience and feedback, we will launch further community hubs across the borough, moving into central Hounslow and Brentford in the autumn. All of our hubs will reflect the area they are in and have the right services and partners that our insight, engagement and experiences tell us are needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rajawat. As member will know, when a council question is asked by someone other than the person who formally proposed it on the agenda, there is no opportunity for supplementary questions. So we will therefore move on to the next question. Okay, Councillor Saab Siddiqui to ask Councillor Catherine Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My question for today is, I've titled it as Sunak Salami Slicing the Green Agenda. What Sunak is doing is basically making the British leadership on the climate agenda diminished by every hour. And that's the issue, basically. And the context for that is basically that Germany has cut greenhouse gas emissions faster than the UK since 2015 Paris Agreement to limit global warming. And Sunak undermined the UK's role in the global climate leadership. And that has impacted UK.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I don't think this is a question.
Question is coming, sir.
Yeah.
Just hold on. Question is coming. And my question to Councillor Dunn is...
Point of order to the Mayor. Not,
yeah.
I was under the impression you had to ask the question that had been tabled.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless we've changed how we do things.
Indeed.
Yeah, and ask the question now.
Please ask the
Mayor,
question.
Your permission? Yeah.
Ask the question.
The question to Councillor Dunn is, the government is abandoning environment commitments very clearly articulated by Zach Goldsmith, a conservative leader himself, in his resignation letter, said that efforts with the government itself is undermining the global climate ambition. And I ask Councillor Dunn that please advise us what the council is making arrangement in terms of strengthening our own commitments to reduce our carbon footprint. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask Councillor Dunn to respond,
yes,
please?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I think the issue is both myself and Councillor Siddiqui are very passionate on this issue, and I think that's coming across. But thank you for your question. And to answer what efforts the council is doing to strengthen our commitments to reduce our carbon footprint. As a council, we remain committed to achieving net zero for our direct emissions by 2030 and as soon as possible for our whole borough. At Cabinet this month, a report was presented on our pathway to net zero, which outlined the plan to achieve a 50% reduction in direct council emissions by 2026, in line with our corporate plan ambition and how we ultimately will deliver our net zero ambitions by 2030. The council declared a climate emergency in June 2019 and subsequently developed a climate emergency action plan. The plan contains over 100 actions, and of those currently funded, we will be able to achieve a 23% reduction in our carbon emissions. The Cabinet report outlines the priorities that we need to do to achieve a further 27% by 2026, bringing us to that 50% target. These priorities focus on accelerating the decarbonisation of our corporate buildings and schools, increasing renewable energy generation, decarbonising the council's vehicle fleet, retrofitting social housing stock. Our social housing comprises 39% of the council's carbon footprint, We also need to prioritise improving our data collection for procured goods and services so that we can better understand the council's consumption through the supply chain, which accounts for 13% of our carbon emissions. And in order to do all this, we need to secure sustainable investment and funding. This is fundamental to the delivery of our ambitions. It's a very challenging environment, and given the scale of investment required to achieve net zero, in Hounslow alone, to decarbonise our entire borough will cost £5.5 billion. And if we look at our own operations, it will cost between 200 and 300 million pounds. But the council has a strong track record in securing external investment to deliver the projects set out in the Climate Emergency Action Plan. And to date, the council has secured, invested and allocated approximately £48 million of the 200 million that we require to reach our 50% target by 2026. We have also set out opportunities that are being explored by the council to secure this level of investment that's required to implement our plans. This includes the net zero neighbourhood investment model that I will be bringing a report to Cabinet on in the coming months. This outlines the business case that has recently been published by 3CI, which is the city's Climate Investment Commission, and for which we are actively exploring in Hounslow as a potential holistic solution to decarbonising our neighbourhoods. This challenge is not unique to Hounslow, and we continue to explore alternative and innovative methods to deliver on our commitments, such as the 3CI model, along with pursuing large-scale government funding and in encouraging a simplification of funding to local government.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Siddiqui, do you have a supplementary? Okay, thank you. I was going to say, if you have, then be brief and concise, you know. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Agenda item 12. Unfortunately, Councillor Balraj Sarai is unable to be here this evening, and so Councillor Junumia will be asking the question in his place. Councillor Junumia, may I ask you to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. My question to Councillor Tom. And new London Borough reports highlight the worsening impact of shrinking housing supply and escalating rents on Londoners looking for an affordable home. As London moves ever closer to a housing emergency and the government refuses to give local authorities the help they desperately need to solve the crisis, is the council on track to meet our target of building 1,000 council homes?
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Bruce to respond?
You certainly can, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mir, for asking that on behalf of Councillor Sarai. I know this is something that he and I have talked about before, and it's something that he is concerned about, ensuring that his residents in his ward and the residents across the borough have enough housing to meet the needs for everybody. As he said in the question, the council has an ambition and a target to build 1,000 council homes by the end of this administration. That gives us another 3 years. The HRA business plan outlines how this is going to happen. The first year, the plan was to build over 300. By the end of the second year, over 500, almost 800 by the end of the third year, and over 1,000 by the end of the fourth year. The plan currently indicates we anticipate 1,049 homes by the end of the 4-year plan. Now, pleased to say that we're at the end of the first year, and in fact, at the end of the first quarter of the second year. And currently, we have gone into contract on 403 homes. So at this moment in time, pleased to say we're bang on target to meet that 1,000 by the end of the 4 years. Now, this achievement is to be commended, and I want to thank everybody in the housing team and the buildings team for getting us to where we are. The forecast is looking strong, but we know that the economic situation is very difficult, both on an individual basis and collectively for councils and the country. Interest rate rises, the cost of living, rapid increases in construction costs mean that although we are confident still of meeting our targets, it does threaten our ability to deliver all our building aspirations. So I offer a word of caution on those high aspirational targets. But I would like to once again say thank you to all the staff that are working very hard to deliver the much needed homes for the borough's residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mia and Councillor Bruce. Moving on to next item. We are now at the part of the agenda devoted to motions. We have two motions to consider this evening and only 30 minutes in which to discuss them. So may I ask members to bear this in mind when making contributions. We therefore now move on to the first motion, which can be found at agenda item 13. I now therefore invite Councillor Emma Sidhu to propose the motion. Emma Sidhu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to move this motion. Fair trade motion is agreeable by all of us, and I'm sure the Conservatives will believe that everyone should pay the fair tax. For many years, local government has been called to power, including taxations, as part of the criteria for obtaining goods and services. At a time when everyone is struggling with the rises of cost of living, it's immoral that some companies are finding loopholes in the law to avoid paying the right level of tax. Research by the Fair Tax Foundation has revealed that between 2014 and 2019, a huge 17.5% of UK public contacts with a combined value of £37.5 billion were won by business with connections to tax haven. Recent research has found that the UK lost an estimate of 17 billion in corporation tax revenues as a result of the profit shifting alone. Imagine the difference it would make for our residents. Mr. Mayor, I move this motion and I urge everyone to support it. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Mayor, on a
Councillor
point of
Sidhu.
order, the
What is
motion
the
wasn't
point of
read into the
order?
record. Can we have your permission to have that non-reading actually recorded so that the information we've just received will be legal and valid?
Sorry, Councillor. Can you also?
Can you just repeat that,
The motion was not read into the record. That's the normal practice here at the London Borough of Hounslow. And therefore, you need to give permission that the motion stands as it stands recorded in the agenda, because it's normally read into the debate.
Okay. I think I believe this was, but we'll take the advice.
There's no provisions.
Okay. And I was just told that motion don't have to be read out, Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Adesh Farman to second the motion and speak to it if he wishes? Councillor Adesh Farman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to second this motion so eloquently proposed by my colleague. Mr. Mayor, I know you're short of time. I want to make a very short speech, if you allow me. Yeah. The two most recent surveys carried out by Ipsos Mori reveal that corporate tax avoidance is the most pressing issue for an amazing 11th consecutive year. Chosen by 43% of respondents, the findings indicate that business and government are still collectively falling short of public expectations. The growth of tax havens and unethical corporate tax conduct have become prominent concern across the world. Aggressive tax avoidance negatively distort national economies and undermine the ability of business to compete fairly both domestically and internationally. Giving Council the power to have an expectation, fair taxation in return for business ensures that our residents are getting the fairest possible return for their council tax. For a long time, Hounslow has favored the use of local businesses as a supplier. Mr. Mayor, we are proudly call that Hounslow Pound what better way of ensuring a level playing field which allows ethical local business to compete against larger and even multinational companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farmahan. Yes. No. Okay. Can I invite members to debate the motion? And can I remind all the members they can only speak once? Thank you. And Councillor Emmersley.
Sorry, I skipped my my way of getting in first there. Sorry, apologies. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd just like to say congratulations to Councillor Sidhu on making her first speech since being elected. It was very well given and very well given. And it's an important subject that she's brought to us this evening. So thank you for that. As a group, we're going to be having a free vote on this one, a novelty to some of our colleagues opposite, perhaps. But I just want to speak briefly to add my personal support to the motion and to Hounslow becoming a fair tax council. I won't retread the excellent points already made in this debate. But in my research for the Fair Tax campaign just before coming here this evening, I did discover this as a motion which has already been backed by councils of all different political persuasions right up and down the country. Conservative-led Dumfries and Galloway Council, Labour-led Gateshead Council, Lib Dem-led Bath and North East Somerset Council, and Brighton Council, which was green before the last local elections in what was perhaps my only favourite Labour gain of the evening, and the only one that I actually didn't mind so much. So fundamentally, Mr. Mayor, this is a non-partisan motion which is based on fairness. The Fair Tax Foundation says that the UK public procurement rules are currently being rewritten, and whilst the proposed new rules will give councils the power to exclude suppliers who dodge tax, there are, of course, challenges in factoring in bad tax conduct, and that's where this motion comes in. And that's why I'm proud to back it as a way of bolstering our ability to reward good tax practices and stand up to bad tax practices amongst potential suppliers. So I think it's a good motion. It's a worthy campaign. It was fantastically proposed by Councillor Sidhu, and I'm delighted to lend it my full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Emsley. I've got now Councillor McGregor.
Well, this is an interesting motion, but we already have the powers to do what we need to do. I refer you to the Public Contract Regulations 2015. It's already in place. We don't need this motion. Public procurement is subject to World Trade Organization, and the government procurement agreement with the World Trade Organization ensures that the key elements of this motion are already being done. A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, so I've done some research on this. There are further public contract regulations covering contracting and covering different sorts of procurement, particularly in deregulated industries, which might or might not fall under government control. The important thing about it is that the combination of this with the Nolan principles of fairness, honesty, transparency, truthfulness actually give us that particular requirement already. We're already there. Nothing wrong with the motion as such. Councillor Emsley has indicated he's supporting it. But the point about it is it's a paradigm. It's horizon thinking. It's blue sky thinking. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it, except we're already there. HM Treasury's rules are very clear about this sort of issues that you were bringing to bear. The other issue about this motion, of course, is it also talks about making sure we don't buy from people who avoid tax. Well, you wouldn't be able to open a computer if you did that, because the majority of computer supplies are organized by American multinationals, and of course they offshore their profits to Bermuda. But if you stop buying American software, you wouldn't have an organization or an administration. So the blue sky does not actually get to the reality of the situation. Now, of course, what we can do is we can encourage these American multinationals in the main to address best practice and to avoid that. But given the way the American federal tax system is organized, offshoring dollars is what created the Eurodollar market in London in the 1970s. And the Eurodollar market in London is hugely valuable to us. So the offshoring of American dollars parked in Bermuda eventually ended up financing businesses across Europe. Now, we are not subject to American jurisprudence to any great extent. But the important thing about it is that if you start looking for the problems, the wormholes in the carapace of our procurement, you end up creating more problems for yourself than you might solve. May I add my thoughts about Councillor Sidhu's presentation? Congratulations, and very well done.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Any other?
Councillor Lambert, Councillor Mayor.
Councillor Todd, please, yeah.
It's very kind. Thanks very much. And once again, congratulations to Councillor Sidhu. It was a mammoth motion. I think what it highlights, I slightly disagree with my colleague about the complexity of it. I think we all like to see business acting with fairness and transparency and honesty. We despise those who cheat. Cheating is a very common problem. We saw it with the COVID grants. We see it everywhere. And I think the council should be a bastion of honesty and transparency. And I think there's no suggestion it isn't, but this reminds us it's very important to get the views of the public. It's very interesting that there are two definitions I was always taught from on tax. One is tax avoidance, which I do every time I buy an ISA because I avoid the income tax on it. We all do, I expect. And tax evasion. We do know how some of the huge American companies shunt goods all over there. We hear from people in the high street saying, how can they compete with these huge, great organizations? I suppose the thing that's missing from the equation, I was hoping Councillor Shadno, I did ask their scrutiny for a view rather than an unfair question to pose. But I know we use an IT supplier, which is a huge American company, whose tax affairs are questioned. I wonder whether that's worth reflecting on. We publish very little data on who we do business with. We deal with 86 local firms. We have contracts open to 90% of residents, which is very, very good. And there are some minor employment opportunities. So I think before we go ahead lecturing others on what we should do, that we should lead by example on our own tax conduct. Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Can I ask Councillor Omer to, yeah, please, Councillor Omer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel a bit like Till and Charlie, because most of my colleagues have already made points in favor of the fair taxation, including our unfriendly neighbors across the table who very unusually or usually disagree. So this motion is about fairness and equity, or to quote a certain Secretary of State, leveling up. So giving smaller local businesses the same chance to compete as the large corporations. This isn't about squeezing the rich until the pips squeak. This isn't about, most of you, or most of us in the chamber, won't even remember that phrase from the 1960s. It is purely about ensuring that anyone wishing to do business with us is acting fairly. Just like the London Living Wage, the social value, corporate social responsibility, and equality, paying a fair tax should be a basic requirement for doing business with us. The purchasing power of public sector, local government, NHS, police, fire service, civil service, etc. is huge. Imagine the impact and the good that could be achieved both in terms of funding, but giving greater opportunities for residents. I have no intention of repeating what my colleagues have already said. This is hardly a radical idea, and I hope everyone will support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Mayor. Councillor Lambert, please say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's interesting to listen to our Conservative friends looking for reasons why we shouldn't sign up to this. It's the Fair Tax Foundation has been going for a while. I've been engaging with them for quite some time. There are several important businesses in Chiswick that have signed up to the Fair Tax Foundation. One is Richer Sounds, where I would not buy the stuff they sell from anywhere else. Another is Timpson, where you can get your keys redone and all sorts of other lovely little things. And these companies, they not only have a commitment to paying tax correctly, they also have a lot of other commitments in terms of how they deal with their customers, with their staff, etc. It's a very important thing. We did not say, before I was a councillor, somebody said, we like this idea of paying people a living wage, and we're going to insist that we do it and that we ask the people who supply the council to pay a living wage. And we've stuck to that, and we will stick to that. And we should be saying the same about fair tax. I only want to deal with people who pay tax at the appropriate rates, and the council does the same.
Thank you, Councillor Rambert. And can I ask Councillor Salman Shaheen to say?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to assure you and reassure Councillor Todd that he's actually a far more moral person than he gives himself credit for. He is not guilty of tax avoidance. Tax avoidance is to utilise a loophole which is not intended by government. What you are doing is quite legitimate tax planning by using a scheme that the government has indeed endorsed. Tax avoidance is far more serious, and it goes on an industrial scale across the world. Exploited by multinational corporations all around the world, using Britain's network of overseas territories and crown dependencies. We are the heart of the tax avoidance industry, and developing countries lose more in tax avoidance every year than they receive in aid. Just think about that for a second. And to Councillor McGregor's point, I would say that public pressure works. You can name and shame American companies, and yes, you can accept that maybe we're not going to be able to boycott them all. But let's think about Starbucks for a second. When Starbucks was done in the public consciousness for not paying tax for 14, I believe, of the 15 years that it operated in the UK up until that point, because apparently it hadn't made any profit despite continuously expanding, it was forced by public pressure and the threat of a mass boycott campaign to voluntarily make a sizable tax contribution to the British coffers. So public pressure works, and this motion absolutely speaks to that. And I'm glad that this council, after passing this motion, let us hope, will contribute to that public pressure.
Thank you, Councillor Shaheen. Can I ask Councillor Vikram Grewal to speak here? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Without labouring the point that's been said tonight by a lot of people, I think Councillor Shaheen made a fair point, and I'll be buying my flat whites from elsewhere. But on the point of fair tax, Councillor Elmslie made a very fair point that this has been supported by political parties of all sides of our country, and that's for a reason. Fair tax is something that should be the heart of all our societies. I mean, there's an old phrase that there's two certainties in life, that's death and taxes, and they should be fairly proportionate, especially in terms of tax. SMEs are the heart of our society, whether it's our borough or nationally. I think they employ over 61% of people in this country, roughly, and to give them a fair chance against larger multinationals who have both the teams in-house and can afford to employ external tax advisors to avoid tax and evade tax, not with ISAs, we all do that, but evade tax, which is illegal. This gives them a fair shot at being competitive and supporting them. Given the fiscal stimulus they give our local communities and our society more broadly, we should do everything possible to make sure that we continue to support them. In terms of the onus on both local governments and national governments to spend collected tax responsibly, that's another discussion that we need to have both on a local basis especially in this macroeconomic environment that we'll be in now. And for the next 18 months, I assure you there's a lot more pain to come. And there's a lot of tailwinds for that. But also nationally, to quote Tony Blair today at a centrist event that was hosted, we're claiming and charging tax at the highest rate ever. And as a government, we're also spending the most that we have in peacetime in our history. So what that means is public spending and public services as they are not sustainable. We need to tax more efficiently, but also be more efficient on a local and national level. And I think that is a big challenge for us as well.
Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Can I move suspension of standing orders, please?
Okay. Agreed? Okay. Is it agreed? Agreed. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Can I ask Samina Nagra to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I should be speak first. Already the people have spoken already now. But anyway, I'll speak again. This council notes that corporate tax avoidance is costing the UK approximately 17.5 billion a year. This is why it is important that we in this chamber tonight back this motion and send a clear message that corporate tax avoidance is unacceptable. While tax enables the provision of key services for our residents, from education to healthcare, flood defense, and tackling financial inequalities, good tax conduct, that the revenue generated from the taxes is fair and reflective of the corporate tax rates. This council calls on central government to give greater powers to local councils and other public bodies so that they can use these powers through procurement to identify good tax conduct from bad tax conduct. The fair tax mark is used by many businesses across the UK and ensures enterprises have the means to demonstrate good business conduct. Mr. Mayor, this council also seeks to ensure the strict implementation of IR 35 to ensure contract workers also pay their taxes fairly. Mr. Mayor, this council is committed to leading by example. This is why this council upholds the Fair Tax Declaration to encourage and promote better transparency from our supplier businesses and contractors to demonstrate good practice. Mr. Mayor, this council recognizes that a lot more needs to be done to tackle the issue of tax avoidance. This is why we call on central government to grant local councils the powers needed to tackle the problem and reform UK procurement law, which currently is highly restrictive. I will be supporting this motion, and I urge everyone in this chamber to support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nagra. Is there any other person? No? If that is the case, can I invite Councillor Emma Sidhu to sum up?
Thank you. I just want to reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Okay. All right. With this, we move to vote. We are asking for the recommendation, against the recommendation, any abstentions, and we will do this by show of hand. Is that agreed? Okay. So for the recommendations? Okay. Unanimous? Okay. Against the recommendations? Okay. Any abstentions? No. Oh, there's one. Okay. One abstention. Okay. All right. The motion is approved. Thank you. We're moving to the next item, 14. We therefore now move on to the second motion, which can be found at agenda item 14. I now therefore invite Councillor Marina Sharma to propose the motion. And Marina, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, while Vision Zero strategy is being set by the Mayor of London, Transport for London and Metropolitan Police, the responsibility for its success is shared by all, especially local authorities such as Hounslow, who have a role in designing, building, operating and managing our transport network. Travelling by car has now become much safer, partially reflecting improvements in vehicle safety features. However, today there is a higher risk when travelling by foot, by bicycle and by motorcycle. People killed or seriously injured when travelling by these modes now account for 80% of deaths and serious injuries on London's roads. This is an unacceptable statistic. Vision Zero sits at the heart of Healthy Streets approach, and other transport policy objectives are dependent on its success. Reducing road danger not only helps to prevent casualties, it also unlocks the potential for more walking and cycling trips, contributes to a zero carbon transport system, improves local air quality, and reduces congestion through improving the efficiency of the street network. All of this helps to tackle two of the most serious and pressing issues facing our society. The public health crisis brought about by inactivity, manifested through increased obesity, heart disease and diabetes, and changing global climate, and the need to build resilience, champion sustainable growth, and support the achievement of net zero. Reducing the dominance and overall numbers of the most dangerous vehicles is central to the Healthy Streets approach and to achieving Vision Zero, and will reduce Londoners' exposure to road danger by making our streets safer and feel safer. We will create where people want to walk, cycle, and use public transport. Hounslow fully supports Vision Zero, and this is contained within our transport ambitions. We have set the same targets as the Mayor of London for reaching Vision Zero by 2041, and this is in the One Hounslow delivery plan as part of the transport programme. We are actively undertaking a road safety review, and this is focused on reviewing data across the borough over the last few years to understand patterns and trends and to identify possible interventions. Actions that we have taken and are undertaking include segregated cycle lanes and quiet routes, adult and children cycling lessons, and we promote safety training for motorcyclists run by the Met Police. A walking and wheeling strategy that is in development to improve the experience of pedestrians and wheelchair users. School streets, for example, and 20-mile-per-hour zones in residential areas, vehicle-activated speed signs, community speed watch, although enforcement of speed limits can only be completed by the police. It is neither inevitable nor acceptable that anyone should be killed or seriously injured when travelling in Hounslow, or indeed anywhere in London. When we leave our homes each day, we should feel safe and confident about the journey ahead. Each time a person is killed or seriously injured on our streets, the impact in terms of grief, emotional trauma, and financial hardship are felt far beyond the individual. Serious collisions shatter lives, and the repercussions are often hidden from society's view or seen as the inevitable byproduct of travel. We must challenge this thinking and reinforce the view that these tragic events are neither unavoidable nor bearable. I'm sure that you will agree, Mr. Mayor, that one death on our streets is one death too many. And I now move this motion, and I urge the Chamber to all vote in favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharma. I would like to invite Councillor Karamat Malik to second the motion and speak to it if he wishes.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission. Mr. Mayor, as outlined by Councillor Sharma, we cannot tolerate the level of deaths and injury currently seen over roads. There were 23,139 road collisions recorded in London in year 2021, resulting in 75 people being killed, 3,505 being seriously injured, and 23,092 being slightly injured. The effects of road traffic collision leave for more than physical injuries. They leave a significant and lasting emotional, social, economic impact on all those involved. Mr. Mayor, we see many major cities around the world acting to reduce and ultimately end deaths and injury on their roads and transport network by committing to Vision Zero. London, as in many other areas, is world leader in taking action to tackle this problem and is at the forefront of the mayor's transport strategy, setting a goal for all deaths and serious injury to be eliminated from London transport network by 2041. Mr. Mayor, Hounslow must not only play its part in this strategy, but as in many other policies areas, should be seen as one London, leading and innovate boroughs, proudly standing up for the residents and doing everything it can to make our borough a safer, cleaner, and greener place to live and work. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, I'm delighted to second this important motion.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. May I invite members to debate the motion, and can I remind that members can speak once in a debate? Thank you. Councillor Mashisho.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to your place. Congratulations. I must admit, this is something that we fully, on this side, agree with Councillor Sharma, and I know she spoke passionately about this, and it means a lot to her, and also Councillor Malik as well. You spoke passionately about this subject. Safety is very, very important. I'd like to add to Councillor Malik's comments about the statistics from 2021, because in 2022, there were nearly 25,000 reported collisions in London, and that resulted to 101 deaths, more than 2021. So the problem keeps getting worse. So again, I extend my thanks to you for bringing this motion to today's meeting. Well, out of those nearly 25,000 injuries, 4,000 people were seriously injured, and their lives were altered permanently from those collisions. And we haven't even considered, actually Councillor Sharma mentioned it, the implication and the effect on the friends and families of the victims. According to Break, the charity, the road safety charity, 80% of those involved in serious collisions were either pedestrians, cyclists, or motorcyclists. That's why, on this side, we support this vision. And we believe every road death, as Councillor Sharma said, and every serious injury on the road is preventable. We know that people make mistakes. Of course we know that. So Vision Zero seeks to design solutions and infrastructures that keep that in mind, keep those facts in mind. So by setting appropriate speed limits, that's just one way of avoiding serious injuries, of course. But to address that, we need more than just the speed limits. There are many other recommendations that the road safety charity that has made, and the mayor, I believe, must adopt. None of us here tonight wish to see another life taken or altered on our roads. So how do we get there? Well, first, we need some key performance indicators. We need some interim targets. But unfortunately, the mayor hasn't allowed that to happen. The Conservative group at City Hall have asked for a cross-party delegation to speak with the mayor about addressing these issues, but he has yet to come forward. So I hope tonight's motion helps bring that forward. But this is beyond party politics. But the method to reach Vision Zero is not just to force councils to roll out 20-mile-per-hour limits, but it is to help enforce some of the key areas, especially as you saw in the motion. I know it wasn't read out, but the deprived areas of our communities are where most of the accidents are happening. But there is a substantial lack of enforcement, and we need to do more to work with our police and our enforcement officers to address that. So the motion goes on to talk about, in the written form anyway, goes on to talk about how we can prioritize and develop clean air. I have to tell you, we don't get clean air by bringing traffic to a standstill. The average speed going across London is less than 10 miles per hour on a good day. That's a lot of idling. That's caused by closures, LTNs, diversions, you name it. To improve air quality, I believe the mayor must electrify our London buses and keep London moving. Because sitting in traffic causes stress. People grow impatient and look desperate for measures to overcome their anxieties. I know this all too well. Just last Sunday, I was hit by a double-decker bus swinging into my lane and damaging my car. That was a professional driver because he was sat impatient in traffic. I wonder how many more collisions are being caused by stress, by people sitting in traffic. So while I welcome Vision Zero, I feel we need to work with the mayor and tackle these urgent blind spots. There needs to be a wider debate about how we use vehicle technology. I know Councillor Sharma mentioned about technology there. How we use
30 seconds left.
Technology, how we improve enforcement, and how we work together cross-party. We need to work with our young people because these are the most dangerous road users at the moment, statistically speaking. And finally, we need to better support our victims. So I hope that this motion tonight will help us and the mayor to take a 360-degree approach to this Vision Zero. Failing to do so puts us all at risk. So let us work together and get it right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mashisho. Okay. Can I ask Councillor Gul to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to talk in the favor of this motion. I really appreciate Mr. Councillor Sharma to bring this motion in this meeting. The Vision Zero Action Plan is based on the principle that no loss of life or serious injury is acceptable when traveling on London Street. There is a significant change in the transport policy, and we have a major contribution in keeping our record and communities safe and secure for travelers. I believe that everyone sitting in this hall is agreed that the main cause of road injuries are due to high-speed driving and taking risky action. Our priority is to overcome these problems and work towards achieving a safe road. The Vision Zero Action Plan is aimed lower speed limits, transformation junction, as this is one of the major causes of the RTA road traffic accident. Reducing the risk posed by heavy good vehicle and buses through the direct vision standard scheme, reducing negligent and risky behavior, providing justice and care of the affected victim post-road traffic cohesions. The London Mayor is investing approximately 2.2 billion in streets across London of make them safer for walker, cycling, and improving the environment of everyone. According to this motion, by 2041, majority of traveling will be done by cycling, walking, or using public transport. Lot of work has been done by us in Hounslow and the Metropolitan Police Services to eliminate road danger in London in line with the Vision Zero Action Plan over the coming years. Achieving these objectives require collaboration between the government agencies, transportation organizations, and the communities. We are collectively responsible for making our road safer. Every effort is being made to implement the Zero Vision Action Plan and achieve the desired outcome. I am glad to talk in the favor of this motion and ask to fellow councillor to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gul. I don't think we have any more speakers. So with this, can I invite Councillor Sharma if she wishes to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to sum up, every day we leave our house, and we either are walking, we are cycling, we use our vehicle. We are taking a risk daily. Like I said, it is neither inevitable nor acceptable that anyone should be killed or seriously injured when travelling within the borough. And as I said, one death on our streets is one death too many.
Thank you, Councillor Sharma. We are moving to vote. So we are asking for the recommendation, against the recommendations, any abstentions, and we do this by show of hands. So for the recommendations, thank you. I think we'll ask against the recommendations. No? Any abstentions? No. So that's a unanimous. Thank you very much. Well done. So motion Carried. With this, we are moving to agenda item 15. Any other matter that is urgent? I do not see any other matter which is urgent. So we'll go to item 16, date of next meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, 19th September 2023. Can I ask all the members to sign the book if they haven't signed it? And with this, we conclude this meeting. And summer is coming, so all have a happy summer holidays. We'll see you after the recess, Thank you. Thank you.